Greetings, Guardians. My name is Granite, and today we're going to be doing a weapon review on the Last of the Legion sidearm. Now, there are a handful of reasons why I am making this video to begin with, and one of them is there is just a lack of videos in general. So, there isn't any proper full weapon reviews of the Last of the Legion. Now, besides Blessius, he sort of just glazes over the weapon and just shows it in PvP, but he doesn't justify it good because, well, he's a trash can and uses it at hand cannon-like range, which you're not supposed to do with a sidearm. Another reason why I wanted to pick up this sidearm to begin with was because it was a 3-round burst kinetic sidearm. And if you are familiar with using a 3-round burst, then you know that it is extremely lethal weapon. And it would fill up my loadout because, well, as much as I like to use Antiope, I'd really like my sidearms instead. It really started to appeal to me because after using Antiope with Graviton Lance for a long duration of time, I wanted some kind of alternative to swap to, and this has provided a great alternative. The things with Antiope that I never liked to begin with was it had slow handling, slow reload speed, and a kind of shitty mag size if you ask me. So with this weapon, it compensates all of those disadvantages, and it pretty much gives you a solid weapon overall. Now, there isn't a whole lot of videos even talking about this weapon because it's just really, really underrated. So I'm going to go ahead and just justify the weapon, and I will show it some love. Now let's go ahead and do some analysis on the weapon first. Primarily, we'll go over the base stats. In the range department, we have 39. In the stability department, we have 82. On the magazine size, it has 30 bullets, so 10 bursts. We have a reload speed of 36. And lastly, a handling speed of 55. A zoom factor of 12. An inventory size of 47, an aim assist value of 67, and lastly, a recoil direction of 100. Now, we'll talk about this 100 recoil direction later, as it does quite favor the weapon. Now let's go ahead and analyze some of the perks on this weapon. The first of being the adaptive frame. As we all know, and as I said at the beginning of the video, that this is a 3-round kinetic burst sidearm. Very popular in the Crucible. Now it has 3 compensators you can choose from. It has corkscrew rifling, which will slightly increase range and stability. Then you have hammer forged rifling, which will just increase your range. And lastly, you have fluted barrel, which will increase your stability and great handling speed, but does take a penalty to range. In the next column, we have Zen Moment, so the more damage you do on your target, the more stability the weapon has. Then in the other category, we have Ambitious Assassin, so when you get kills and you reload, the mag size is bigger. And the last slot, which is quite unique to burst sidearms, and at least this one in particular, is Full Auto Trigger System. And this, whenever you're holding down the trigger, goes into full auto mode. Now we'll go ahead and compare some of the base stats side by side of the Last of the Legion and the Last Hope and see how they compare. As you can see on screen, the base stats of both weapons are very, very similar. The Last Hope does sport a range of 41 as opposed to Last of Legion only having 39, which means that there's slightly increased range on the Last Hope, although that can be compensated depending on which compensator you are using. The stability remains the same. The Last of Legion has 1 extra burst. Reload speed, Last Hope only sports 1 extra point, not too much of a big difference. And lastly, handling speed seems to be the same. Zoom factor is the same, inventory size the same. Last Hope sports with 70 aim assist points, and the aim assist value on Last of Legion is 67. Lastly, and this is what sets these weapons apart yet again, Last of the Legion has 100 recoil direction, and Last Hope has 93. However, depending on how you set up your perk combinations within the compensators on either gun, you can compensate for the recoil direction on the Last Hope. Now, we're going to go ahead and talk about how to optimize this weapon properly. So, I'll go ahead and just discuss PvE really quickly. So in PvE, you don't really want to use this weapon. I wouldn't recommend it. I mean, it would do a good job at close range, close combat quarters, if you're dealing with just the hounds and some of the other dogs and scions. It can do decent work. But would I recommend it? Not really. I would just use Midnight Coupe still, as it provides a lot more benefits for utility. In PvP, however, this is where the weapon shines, and how you need to properly optimize it. So the perk combination that I chose on the weapon had to be this as following. The main reason why I chose Hammerforged Rifling on Last of the Legion was so that it had increased range. Now you might think that stability and handling are important, and they are. However, the fact that this weapon has 100 recoil direction makes up for that, so it's easier to handle. Now, range, and what this actually does for the sidearm itself, is it creates a more accurate environment, so you can hit your target a lot more. Thus, it'll start proccing Zen Moment, and then that'll give you bonus stability upon hitting your target. And lastly, we'll go over full auto trigger system and how to optimize it. Now, depending on the way you play, if you're used to just bursting the weapon, or if you want to prioritize the full auto, you can do either both, or you can play with either one. It doesn't matter. Personally, I use both ways, in bursting and doing full auto. So whenever I am bursting the sidearm, it usually typically is at a little bit of a further range, because you want to be able to pace your shot properly and make sure you're pulling down on the recoil when it does occur. At occasions that you do want to use full auto is when you are very close to someone, and obviously making sure that you are hip fire if you're super close to them. But ADS isn't too bad when you're in close range. Another scenario that full auto can come in very handy is when you're in a challenged situation with another opponent. If you are both out in the open and both in close range, you can optimize the full trigger system by managing your recoil and also reading your opponent's strafe, and of course your strafe, as well as crouch strafing in the meantime. Now, one thing to keep in note that you should know about this weapon is that its airborne accuracy when you are ADSing seems to be quite horrendous. I'm not too sure why this is, but when you are airborne and assaulting someone, just make sure that you're using the hip fire on it, because it does tend to be a little bit more accurate than as you were to ADS the opponent. Anyway, I hope this has helped any of you guys in any shape or form. If you liked the video, drop it a like. It will be very much appreciated. I'll also drop a Rumble gameplay in the background so you can see how the weapon can be properly optimized. Obviously, I will not be using it all the time, but when there are scenarios that do occur, you'll see where the weapon does shine. Thank you for watching. Take care. Granite out.